What's good, my good people? What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? You already know what it is. Real Talk Radio with your host G, out here doing the dumb things that need to be done. We out here, we out here, we out here, we out here. You know what it is. A beautiful Monday, and you know we out here, we on the grind, we on the hustle. We doing the things, we doing the things, we doing the things. And you know what it is on Real Talk Radio. It's On the Rise Mondays. And like I said in my introduction, On the Rise Mondays is basically a platform where I invite young people that I've identified, and in the future, hopefully, if you guys know some young person out there who's just doing the most, tell them to holler at me and they can come on the show and we can talk. But yeah, anyway, basically it's just a platform where young people can come on and just, speak about what they're most passionate about, the business endeavors that they're pursuing, or any side hustles and grinds that they're really pushing for, and anything that they're using to kind of brand themselves and really make a name for themselves and cement themselves in our society and in the world as a whole. And yeah, that's basically what On the Rise Mondays are about. So I hope that you guys really tune in and listen into what other young people are doing for themselves. And I hope you guys feel inspired to also go out there and do something for yourselves. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, but like, as long as they're pushing your passions, guys, and actually, doing what you gotta do to get your money up, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't always have to be about money, but as long as you're living out your passions, I think that's one of the most important things in life, is that we actually try, at least under whatever circumstances, to actually live out our passions no matter what. And on today's episode, the first episode of On the Rise Mondays, I have Chisa in studio with me. I'm going to say in studio, even though it's not in studio. I just want to feel myself a little bit, guys. So today I have Chisa, and basically she started a podcast. It's called The Root of the Science, and she's really pushing that grind, and it's actually really going really well for her. And I just want her to come on and speak about what her podcast is about. And yeah, hopefully you guys feel inspired to also start your own podcast. So stay tuned as I speak to Anne about her podcast and what kind of inspired her to start and her journey with it. So welcome, Anne, and thank you for joining me on the Rise Mondays here on Real Talk Radio with your host, G. So can you just please give us a brief background and introduction of yourself?
Okay, hi, G. Thank you, first of all, for having me on your show. I'm so excited to be here and to be on the flip side of this whole interviewing thing. So my name is Chisa, like you mentioned. I am 25, originally from Malawi, but living and studying in South Africa. I've recently completed my master's in agriculture science, like just the other day. Officially, I got my certificate. And then also at the same time, I am the host and the founder of the Root of the Science podcast. And also I have a small little tutoring service as well. So yeah, that's about me.
Okay, sweet. Can you, obviously we're here because of your podcast, The Root of the Science. Can you just tell us a little bit more about The Root of the Science, what it's about, and the objective and the purpose of why you started The Root of the Science podcast?
Okay, so The Root of the Science podcast is a podcast where I interview various Africans, and by Africans I don't mean black, I mean black, white, Indian, colored, everybody, all across the globe, who are involved in STEM being science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So all of those the scientific field, which is overall called STEM. And then the purpose is that I want to give people the opportunity to share their stories and their research and their projects in the STEM field. Because I realized that, you know, as much as there's so many, let me say this, there are so many things that Africans as a whole are doing such amazing work in this field, but there's just not a lot of platforms featuring them to actually tell their stories in their own voice. And you know, when somebody speaks about their own things, you can actually hear the passion come through. So that's what I wanted to do. I mean, as much as they get featured, but the tone can sometimes change. So I was like, you know what, let me invite these people. You come on board, you tell me why you're doing what you're doing, and we give you that platform. But also the most important thing is that why the show is called The Roots of the Science is I want to be like, okay, you're doing this amazing research, but who are you? Like, what actually got you into the science? What is the root of the science? And apart from the science, apart from the academic things, like, who are you as a person as well? So it's a very encompassing project. And also I want to highlight and promote how vast STEM is, because I think people have got a very linear thought process of when you think of science. So that's what I want to do. I want to just showcase the variety of it.
Okay, and who would you say your target audience is? Do you think you'd actually like target, like, let's say, for example, high school kids who want to venture into science but aren't too sure about what specific field they want to major in?
Yeah, definitely. I want to say everybody. Definitely, I'd love to target science, the high school people, because I know when I was growing up, when I thought of science, I didn't really have visible role models to be like, I know this person who's doing this, I know this person who's doing this. So I want to show the high school students, but also I want to show normal everyday people who are not even in science to be like, you know what, there are all these amazing fields, and science is not so complex, you know. So give people the opportunity to be like, okay, these people are doing all of this groundbreaking research, but we want to explain it to you that somebody who's never even thought of science in their life, who is a lawyer, who is an accountant, who is in the arts, can then learn something, you know. And then also my target audience is also the people in the academic field, to be like, look at all these other people who are doing the science, or maybe just give them the opportunity to network, to be like, oh my word, I heard so-and-so is working on this, on Anne's podcast, I'd like to reach out. So to just create those networks as well, which is something that I'd like to do. So it's everyone.
No, that's great. Okay, that's great. And what would you say the root of your science is? I think you spend so much time asking other people what the root of their science is. What would you say the root of yours is?
That's a great question. And I always think about it, you know, when I ask people this question. And I was actually telling a friend of mine the other day that I don't think I have a defining moment. Like, I know with some of my guests, there's always a teacher, or there's always a book or a show. For me, I don't think there was a defining moment. I think science happened to me, if I can say that. Like, when I think about it, when I was in high school, I wanted to be an audiologist. I know, very random. So for my grade in grade 11, we have this thing where you go work experience, right? Where you go and shadow somebody into the different field. So I thought audiologist. Ask me why, because I just thought it was something different. I don't know. There's something about me where I thought it was something different. I like to do things that seem different, and I was like, oh wow! And I even shadowed this doctor at one of the doctor's rooms, and I really liked it. It was pretty interesting. And then, due to circumstances, I think I couldn't register for that course because I'm based in Pietermaritzburg and it's in Westville, Durban, in South Africa. And then I couldn't. So then one of my dad's friends was an agricultural engineer, and then he's like, agriculture, it's something that you should really think about it, and it's very marketable, and you can get so much money. And then I was like, yeah, okay, well, I'm very good at geography, I'm good at bio, so
Why not?
why not? And the
Yeah.
funny thing, even like when I think about this, when I applied for my in grade 11, I had like the most amazing marks. So I applied with my grade 11 marks, and I was conditionally accepted. Then
Yeah.
I don't want to say it was the teacher's fault, but okay, we changed teachers. We changed teachers in grade 11, in grade 12. My teacher who taught me
Yeah.
for grade 11 for maths, she was brilliant. I love that lady. She made me fall in love with maths. Anyway, she became the deputy principal, so she didn't have time to take on a lot of classes. So unfortunately, she
Yeah.
had to let us go. And then we had this new teacher, who was not so good at maths. So our whole class
Yeah.
average dropped. So now as a result, my maths mark wasn't that good. I actually didn't get the qualifying mark, and I was
Yeah.
devastated. So I could no
Mm.
longer do the direct sciences. I had to do like a humanities course, and then I had to go and get my. But then I was so devastated. But I knew that there was something wrong, that I couldn't have got like at least gotten like a 50. Then I had to go and get a
Yeah.
remark, and I got a remark, and things were rectified. And actually, they actually realized that, oh snap, I did qualify for this course. So then I switched back into the sciences. So I did an environmental science degree, but in a more environmental management, apologies, which was
Oh
more of
yeah.
the social.
ENVH.
Yeah. No, no, no. It was
Okay.
what they call it. It wasn't ENVS, because ENVS is more of the science stream, but this one was more of just management. So we did more of the
Oh, okay.
humanities courses. So the first year in university, I did that. And then second
Mm-hmm.
semester, when my whole life was rectified, I went back into the sciences. So getting into my science was a little bit of a struggle, but I eventually got there. Yeah, and like I said, it's yeah. When I look back at it, that was actually, I didn't thought about that in a while. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it was one of those things that it happened to me. But I'm glad it happened. It happened. Yeah, science. That's the root of
Okay.
my science.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing your journey. I mean, I think when you embark on any sort of endeavor, you're bound to encounter so many challenges, but I think that kind of shapes us as human beings and kind of shapes our path.
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
Okay, so what would you say made you venture into podcasting? Like, what was your thought process when you decided, you know what, I am going to start a podcast?
Wow. Okay. This is another bit of a long story. So let's say last year when I was finishing my masters, it was showing me flames. Yeah, it was showing me the most amount of flames, and then I started to write about it, right? And then I was part of a fellowship called Black Women in Science, and they had this platform where we could share our thoughts. So I wrote about some of the feelings of how the masters was showing me flames, and people were resonating. So then I was like, you know what? Then I went back. Then I was on Twitter, but I left Twitter for a while because I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
Twitter is the pits, there's trolls, you know. But then I went back. I don't know what made me go back, but I went back, and then I found this amazing community of what I call academic Twitter. And when I went there, I met such an amazing community where they actually helped me through some of the really tough parts of my masters in terms of advice. Then there was a girl, her name is Natasha. She's Zimbabwean, but she's based in Luxembourg. And she put out this tweet saying, you know what, she's creating this platform. Well, she wants to create a platform called Visibility STEM Africa, which promotes the visibility of Africans in STEM also. So I was like, oh my word, this is awesome. I DM'd her. Okay, I'm the DM queen. Like I'm not afraid to DM people. So I DM'd her. So So I DM'd her and I was like, oh my word, hi, my name is Anne. I like what you're doing. How can I be a part of it? So I didn't really think anything of it. And then
Yeah.
she DM'd me back and she was like, oh my word, Anne, that's awesome. Yes, fantastic. Let's get together. Then as of January, her and her co-founder, another Natasha, she's based in Australia. They started this platform officially
Mm.
on Twitter, and I was part of their blogging team. So I used to write blogs about my experiences in Africa. Then I submitted
Yeah.
my masters, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And at the same time, I was having all of this talk where they were saying that I need to publish my papers for my
Mm-hmm.
science, and I was like, okay, fine, if I publish, and then what? Like for me, I just wanted to know what happens. I just thought it would just never go
Yeah.
anywhere,
Yeah.
you know. So I
Yeah.
was like, I wasted this masters took my soul, and then I'm just gonna publish for what? So then I was like, it would
Yeah.
be really cool if I could share my information. So that's when also at the same time I was being introduced to this thing called science communication on Twitter. So it's about a way how you
Mm-hmm.
communicate science more effectively. I don't want to say you simplify the science, but you communicate it in a way that is still has the meaty pieces where the important parts, but people are going to actually consume it
Understand.
consume it in a more palatable manner of sorts. So I started learning about that, and I was like, this is really cool. So I was like, oh
Mm.
my word. So I saw, okay, a lot of people are writing articles, and I was like, okay, as much as I like writing, there's so much tediosity of
Mm.
of editing grammar and whatnot. It's just a lot. So
Yeah.
I was like, why not just
Yeah.
talking to these people? Because I also realized then, when I talk about my research, most of the people, they usually know a lot about it and they're actually so passionate about it, like that voice element of it. So I reached out a friend of mine
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what, while I have time, while I wait for my revisions to come back, let me reach out to some of the people in my institution, and let me talk to them about their research. So the first interview I had was with Sharon McGarry. Shout out Sharon. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
she We had this very impromptu interview in one of the classrooms on campus. Terrible audio from
Yeah.
my phone, but she was such a champion. And I realized when I put it together, although it makes me a bit cringe now because of the audio, but it was really good. She had so many
Yeah.
important things, and I had the most important, impactful part is I had a friend of mine who's a dancer, and he was like, "Oh my word!"
Mm-hmm.
And wow, I didn't know that, because Sharon was talking about how alternative waste of like urine fertilizers, waste fertilizers, instead of the commercial fertilizers.
Yeah.
So he was like, I learned so much. And I was like, this is it. This is something that I have to do. So then I thought, okay, this is something that I have
Yeah.
to do. Then my corrections came back and my life just stopped for a bit. So I didn't touch it. Then the pandemic
Yeah.
happened, right? And everything was at a
Yeah.
standstill. I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was like, this is a great time for me to start pushing this passion project of mine. And and then that's when I
Yeah.
started reaching out to a lot of people, and I realized that people had a lot of time on their hands, and I was a bit overwhelmed with them saying yes. So then I just started, and I
Yeah.
started interviewing some of my connections who I knew, people who I looked up to, some of the connections from Visibility STEM Africa, because I was already part of that, and I saw some really amazing Africans doing some really awesome things. And then also it grew into, once I interviewed this person would be like, oh my word, there's this other person who I know who's also an African who's also doing really amazing stuff. So
Yeah.
that's how it all started. So yeah, that's how the whole thought process of it. And then now we are here, and yeah, it's pretty awesome how big it's gotten over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's where we at.
And what would you say your expectations were before you started out, and how do they differ to your current reality right now?
That's a great question. It is not easy. It looks easy,
Yeah.
but it's not, because I had to learn how to edit. I had to learn the whole specifications in terms of how to market myself. I have to
Yeah.
be the content creator, the producer, the director. It's a lot. As much as it seems, the
Yeah.
finished product it's really, really hard. There's so many things that I have never been trained in, but I had to teach myself. So it's not as easy as it looks, but I'm very willing to learn because I absolutely love what I do. Like the days that I know I'm releasing a new podcast on a Monday or Thursday, I wake up early and I'm like, oh yeah, it's podcast day. So as much as it drains me, or it really drains me, like I will not even lie.
But
it gives me that satisfaction where I'm like, yes, yeah. So the expectations, I thought it would be easier than writing, but actually it's more work than writing.
Yeah. And then in terms of the longevity of the Root of the Science podcast, how long do you see yourself podcasting for? And how do you foresee the evolution of the Root of the Science podcast?
Okay. So another main reason why I started the podcast was that I always wanted to be some sort of in radio, sort of. So I would love for it to grow where maybe it has its own radio slot of sort, but even bigger than that. I was speaking to this other lady who I'm planning to interview tomorrow, and I was telling her that like the big dream, the big, very ambitious dream is to create a platform like, let's say for example, BBC Africa, a very international platform where you think of the likes of like to create a show where we can just have the Africans in STEM all over the world, and let the Root of the Science be that premier place where if you're an African and you're in STEM and you want to talk about your research, you know, and as a person to talk to, and the Root of the Science is that show. So I want to create that platform where it's been on like international level TV, but also on what do you call it? Also on you know, radio, but like just grow the podcast so that it's got like very international. I mean, it already is like, it's crazy when I see that my podcasts are not only in South Africa, in America, in the UK, like Slovakia, like what? Japan, like it's crazy because of the internet. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet. It creates those platforms that we can reach and we can penetrate those spaces. So the big dream is to become very international, and when you think African and STEM, you think the Root of the Science.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. And then in terms of your own personal future goals and pursuits outside of the podcast, can you share that with us?
My own future pursuits. Oh, okay. Apart from the podcast, I would just like to cement my. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to pursue my PhD and get my PhD. So that's my next goal. Secondly, I also want to create a name for myself in terms of being a good public speaker, and just informing people about science and just how bigger the science field is, and how you don't have to necessarily only think just because you're in academia you can't do other things. So also just brand myself, just create that sort of things, that I am in academia, I'm like an academic, but I'm also multifaceted into other projects.
Yeah, just create.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, about the opportunities. Okay, and then in terms of your podcast, back to your podcast, how would you describe the impact of your podcast on your target audience as well as your guests?
The impact. Okay, well, the target audience, I think the impact is that they get to be inspired. You know, they get inspired because people talk about the real things. They talk about how, although I am a CEO of whatever company I am forming in the science community, or I'm a PhD student, I also failed stats, you know, or I also had my fair shares of dealing with mental health, you know, so people can be inspired that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and also just again to be educated. I want people to be educated, that after you've listened to a podcast, you at least learn something new. And as for my guests,
Yeah.
I just want to give them the opportunities to talk about their research, to not only think that the only way to showcase your research is if you go to an academic conference, and to just give them that platform to tell their stories. I really want it to be like a story centered sort of, to not only be about science, science, but I want you to tell your story and to be honest and to be relaxed and just be you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, in your opinion, why would you say that podcasting is a great medium of disseminating content?
Well, that's because podcasting, first of all, you can consume podcasts or listen to a podcast while doing something else. It's not like TV that requires you to be sitting down and watching, number one. So you can be doing so many other things. You can be cooking, you can be running, you can be, so it's very accessible in that sense. Number two, it's very easy to get started. Like when I think about how I got started, it's very easy to get started. As long as you've got the internet and as long as you have a computer or phone, it's very easy to get started. And also, with the research that I've done, maybe in South Africa, the podcast market is not that big. But overseas in the US, it is huge. There's so much potential. Like the biggest podcast guy currently is Joe Rogan. He signed $100 million deal with Spotify, so exclusively his podcasts are there. So I think once we realize that the mediums such as TV, they're being taken away. So, and radio, not a lot of people have time to sit and listen to the radio at home or only in the car. I know that you can also listen to radio on apps so people don't shoot me. But what I'm trying to say is that with the podcast, it can be very selected. You can listen to all sorts of different types of content, and it's like having like series, but like how you consume Netflix, where you can listen in bulk. So if somebody's speaking about this, it's usually in bulk field. So I believe that podcasting is the future, and I think more South Africans need to jump on this bandwagon because it's coming. It's coming.
And how do you think we can create that culture in Africa of people actually, listening to podcasts? Like, how do we go about creating that sense of, what, we need to listen to a podcast instead of, watching TV or whatever the case may be?
First of all, we need to make these podcasts accessible. So these platforms like your Spotify and your Apple Podcast, they're actually very exclusive, in the sense that I realized that I disseminate my podcast to Africans. But I realized when I was disseminating my Spotify link or my Apple Podcast links in other African countries, you can't access them.
They don't have access.
That's the number one problem. And I think that's why I've realized that there are other networks where they're building so that they can make podcasts more accessible. So that is the first thing, that these big podcasting companies need to make them accessible in the African continents, or affiliate your podcast. If you're an African, affiliate your podcast in places that can make it accessible. So it's up to you as a podcaster, actually. You can't really blame these other companies. Number two, I think once you just need we are the people who are starting out now. Like for me, my inspiration is Label Lion. She's got a like a marketing podcast. One of the very few South Africans who I know who has a podcast, and she's killing it. She's been doing this for a long time, but only now has it been picked up. So it's up to the people who are doing it now to do it well, so that people are like, oh snap, Anna's doing a podcast, or G's doing a podcast. So we need to make it, to do it well and to continue. YouTube not so long ago, people didn't want anything to do with YouTube, but now every Tom, Dick and Jabulani is on YouTube making YouTube content. So there's gonna be that progression that there had to be your Mishalis or whoever on your internet and on your YouTube to create dope content, and then so that other people can, yeah,
kind
to
of
create
pave
the
the
way.
way.
So I think
Mm.
I think we need to create content that is really, really good so that people can be like, oh snap, this podcasting thing is really cool. So it's not going to be
Mm.
easy. I mean, maybe in the next year or two, that's when people will actually jump on this bandwagon. But I really see it as an advantage
Yeah.
because I think it then gives me time to really hone my skills, to get myself really
Yeah, definitely.
to work out the kinks, so that by the time it picks up, the Root of the Science podcast
You really in the
is
game.
up
Yeah.
there.
You.
And then also I just think
Mm.
that we should give it more platform to be like, if you want to get into podcasts and you're like, Anne, how did you do it? I am more than willing to be like, this is how I did it. So yeah,
Yeah.
and even on my podcast now, I'm actually creating a little bit of a link where I actually give access to the podcasting hosting site that I've started with. So that's what I realized, that I kind of need to
Yeah.
take that responsibility, because a lot of people are asking me, how did I do it? And I think the best place to
Yeah.
start is just on my own platforms to show this is how I did it.
Okay. And then what advice would you give anyone wanting to start up their own
I would
podcast?
say do it. Don't wait to get a mic. Don't wait to get all the fancy equipment. If you've got a phone, headphones, you can start, and you've got internet. It's you can do it. So don't start.
Yeah, go for it.
Research. You can find so many things online currently on how to start a podcast,
Yeah.
because especially during this pandemic, there's been an increase on podcasts. So I think just do it. Start. Reach
Yeah.
out to people like me. I'm sure G will attach my handles and how to get a hold of me. I'm more than willing
Of course.
to give a little direction. I even created this is funny. I've even created like a little podcast book that I write things down so that
Yeah.
I remember, and that I remember I was actually helping out somebody else the other day, and I had to go back to my books. I actually have notes in terms of how I did this and how I did this. So I'm more than willing to help out and to give assistance if anybody wants some.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And so, good people, I hope you're listening. If you're out there trying to start your own podcast, definitely hit us up. I think what you said is so important in terms of we need to take the responsibility of paving the way for other people who want to be up and coming. So I think that was a really great point that you brought up.
And can I just say one more thing? Sorry, G. I just want to say that once you start as well, like, I just want to give context in terms of how I started without all the fancy equipment. I started from about begging 80 people to please listen to my downloads. But as of
of course.
But as of now, and this was about a month and a half ago. As of now, I have about 1.3 downloads where people are listening to my podcast. So it's possible. I mean, I'm not where I want to be, but I think if you just keep on pushing and you be consistent, it's possible.
Consistent, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Consistency is the key to success, like in everything. Like, you will face hardships, but if you keep on pushing, you'll definitely reach where you want to be. And how would you say podcasting has impacted your life in this short space of time that you've been at it?
I've met some amazing people. I thought I was doing this podcasting thing to inspire others, but every single time, every guest who comes on my show, I am inspired. I'm inspired by what they do. I'm inspired by their hustles, and I've actually I've created some good friendships in the process, and some really good networks. So it's really impacted me. Apologies, positively, and also I've also reached out to other podcasting communities where they've helped me as well. So it's really, really positive. I mean, it's oh, and it's also taught me resilience, like persistence. Like there are moments where I'm like, do I have to do this recording? You know, it's not easy, but I've
Yeah.
taught myself.
I've already started out. I've had those
Yeah,
moments.
they will come. But if you remember the why,
Yeah.
um, you know, you'll keep on keeping on. Yeah, it's taught me to be a little bit more disciplined.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes in podcasting you think you're going to do this, like I have a guest who I thought I was going to interview and then they drop you. I've also learned that don't rely too
Yeah.
much on people. Always have a plan A, B, C, D, because people are people
Yeah.
and they will let you down. So yeah, that's what I've learned.
Yeah. Okay, and then just to wrap our interview up, what would you say your greatest purpose in life
Simply
is?
put, my purpose in life is to be a blessing. I've always believed that. So I always have my way to help people, to inspire people. So I even have this like, yeah, my purpose in life is to be a blessing. So I hope that with this podcast, I touch people, I inspire people. And even if people want to, like I said, that now that I'm where I am, I really want to create a space so if somebody wants to start a podcast, is that to just teach somebody those stumbling blocks that I wish I had somebody tell me to kind of make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my purpose in life, and everything that I do, I always try to be a blessing.
And then what was your last piece of advice to young people, you know, kind of trying to start up their hustle, you know, whether it's them trying to start up a podcast or any endeavor that they embark upon? What's like your last piece of advice for them?
I always think that as a person, there's always something that's on your heart that keeps on coming to you that you know you should do, you know, and
Yeah.
and it might not please people in your life, you know, and it's difficult. I don't want to say like do what you want to do, because life does not allow for that. But I always feel that like if you have that thing that you want to do, try by all means, because this whole radio thing and voice thing has always been something that I've always thought I wanted to do. I just didn't know how. So I believe that we all have that thing in our heart that you want to do something. I really just hope,
Yes, it's
I really hope that as a person you get to do it. You know, you find ways to do it, and it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be so hard, dude. Like it's gonna be so hard. But just try to find the people. Oh, one last thing I heard from somebody. I listen to Tony Robbins a lot, and he always says that as people, you don't lack resources. You lack resourcefulness. So if you want to do something, like you want to start a business, right? You might say I lack money or I lack this, but there's a way. Maybe you can ask somebody. You can sell something to get that money, or like for me, the podcast. I didn't have the resources of the capital for the money, but I started with my phone. So the final thing that I want to say is you don't lack resources. You lack resources. So just be very resourceful.
Yeah, because I think the saying goes, where there's a will, there is most certainly
so it might
a
not
way.
be you might know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, or you jump into people's DMs, dude. Do it. DM them.
So I hope you heard good people. Good people jump into their DMs, but for the good of the greater good of the world. Yeah, no, thank you so much for tuning in and joining me on Real Talk Radio with your girl G.
Me, you're doing fantastically, and I'm so proud of you. I wish you success in this endeavor. You know, it's good to have another person on the podcasting journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I think obviously you started out, and like I already wanted to start out, but then I was just like, yo. And then like when I heard you doing it, I was just like, okay, there's my sign. I need to
Oh,
jump
good. It's
on
good
as
to have
well.
you.
Thank you so much for coming on. So lastly, where can people find you? Where can they find the Root of the
Okay.
Science podcast? Obviously, I'll leave your
Okay.
details, but just
So
let us
yeah,
know.
on Twitter and Instagram, it's at the Roots of Sci Pod, which is the Root of the Science podcast. Twitter and Instagram. The link will be attached to my podcast. Please listen, even if you aren't in the sciences. I promise. I promise there you will learn something. And if you want to just get in touch with me personally, my personal Twitter handle is at annlinda.c, or is it underscore c? And then same for my
Okay.
Instagram. Yeah, my DMs are open. Please come for advice, not for any dodgy stuff.
So, guys, if you're looking for any advice regarding podcasting
Yeah,
or the science, definitely hit Anne up in her DMs. Don't slide for
yeah,
other
because I will not
reasons.
reply.
Yeah. But yeah, I will be leaving Anne's details in the comments, in the description, rather, should I say. So definitely hit her up if you have any questions regarding podcasting, the science, or any other information that you'd like to know about her. Otherwise, and it's been great having you on
Thank
Real Talk
you.
Radio with your host, G. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys got some valuable information on this On the Rise episode. I hope you guys are inspired to maybe start up your own podcast, or actually just go for any endeavor, any pursuit that you is in your heart. I hope you guys really do chase after your dreams and pursue your passions with the fire that is burning within your heart. So thank you for tuning in. That's it from me, your host G. You know what it is, out here doing the damn things that need to be done.